call, please.
President Byrne,
Aye. Here.
Trustee Marquardt,
Here.
Trustee Cook,
Here.
Trustee Schultz,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Takaoka,
Here.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. Would everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, are there any citizens wishing to address the board tonight? Other than, on a topic other than what's going to be on committee of the whole? Okay, if not, first order of business is a proclamation for Grace Mikell. You want to step forward, please? Want to bring Lexi and Sue with you?
They want you up here too.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Grace. We have a proclamation for
You do.
you. Yep, because you deserve it. Proclamation in recognition of Miss Grace Mikell for her dedicated service as president for Vernon Hills Senior Organization. The Vernon Hills Senior Organization was established by the corporate authorities in 1995. The organization was formed to assist the village board with serving the interests of senior citizens of the village by providing advice and recommendations to the needs, desires, and goals of all senior citizens within the village. Grace Mikell began her term as president of the Vernon Hills Senior Organization in 2013. During her term as president, Grace played a pivotal role in the success of the senior organization. Grace has been involved in all aspects of the organization and actively participated as liaison between the organization and the village board and staff. Her leadership and guidance were paramount in ensuring accurate information regarding senior bus services and potential alternatives were communicated to members. Grace assisted the village in communicating a new program known as the Personalized Senior Taxi Program, would be made available to members. Her hard work and dedication to the community is very much appreciated. Therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Roger L. Byrne, and the Board of Trustees do hereby express our sincerest appreciation to Ms. Grace Mikell for her 6 years of faithful and dedicated services as president of the Vernon Hills Senior Organization and the Village of Vernon Hills, dated this 19th day of November 2019.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Grace, do you want to say something?
No, it's been a nice ride. And I got my new president here,
Yeah, now is this Dave
David
Beekman?
Beckman.
Beckman. It's
And I'm gonna stay on as his vice president.
okay.
And
So you're not going away.
no, I'm gonna go away for a few weeks.
Months, not weeks.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
it'll be a couple of months.
Okay, you mean get out of here for the weather?
I'm gonna go home for a couple of months.
Where's
Tampa,
Oh yeah, that's okay.
in Florida.
Yeah, they don't qualify.
Maybe I'll miss some of this cold.
Yeah, I hope you do. All right. Well, Grace, thank you. And, obviously I've known you a long time and,
No, I'll be around.
Okay. Well, here, let's just,
Go get you.
anybody taking a picture of her or no?
Suitable for framing, Grace.
Hold on.
We got Lynn in the back.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's suitable for framing.
Okay. Yeah, nice to see you as usual.
Grace.
Grace, Lily wants to take
Oh, Grace. Hey, we'll shake hands again.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you all.
all right. And the new president is in the audience, okay, Beckman. Okay, David, welcome. Congratulations to you, too. Okay. Next is tentative 2020 meeting schedule, Manager Flushhour.
Mr. President, the schedule for the tentative meeting schedule for 2020 was circulated a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We've tried to accommodate all the events that we know and could reasonably anticipate. The only question we had was one of the regular meeting dates falls on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. To see if there's any interest in changing the date of that meeting. Would you like to change the date of that meeting?
Yeah, well, we could do it what, the next day?
We could do it Wednesday, the 18th. That would be fine.
Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm more Irish than you are.
Are you?
Yeah, 76%.
Really? Okay. Wait, would you swab your mouth or something?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and pay $50.
Okay, and then the next thing is, the next village
The
board meeting.
next announcement is that the next regularly scheduled board meeting will be on Tuesday, December 10th, which is a departure. Normally it would have been on December 3rd, but we only have one board meeting in December, and that will be on December 10th.
Okay,
And then the last announcement I have is that the holiday tree and menorah lighting will take place as usual the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is November 30th at 4:30 p.m.
yeah,
over at the Muni across the street, and Santa Claus will be arriving via the Countryside Fire Protection District.
Couldn't hear you that well.
Oh, I'm sorry. The holiday tree and menorah lighting will be as normal on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is November 30th at 4:30 in the afternoon over at the municipal golf course across the street. And Santa will be arriving courtesy of the Countryside Fire Protection District.
very good. Trustee Appenite.
So what was the date? So that would have been March 18th?
March 18th, Wednesday, the next day, I'm sorry.
Just trying to figure out in my schedule. I don't know if I'll be able to make it, so.
Okay,
Do we have to decide right now, since you just threw that?
It's just,
threw that-
as long as we're planning ahead, we thought that the more notice we give people to be able to make the changes to their schedule, the better off we are.
Right, no, I get that. but-
So, no, we don't have to make that decision now.
Okay, so can we look into that and decide?
Okay, we'll put a question mark.
Okay, thank you.
okay. All right, next is Public Works Director Dave Brown. This is germane to James Martin Associates Snowplow contract.
Thank you. We absolutely have had an interesting start to our winter season. I think we've set 3 historic cold records already. The week before, we had heavy rains, and any remaining leaves on the trees seemed to have dropped before we went out and did our plowing operations. That being said, we're ready to go. At the end of last season, we expended all of our budget to the 150% point, so we have 2 full bins. We've ordered more. We have 1,600 tons in this budget, so we're ready for the winter. That being said, we've met with James Martin and Associates. We've reviewed the cul-de-sac plans. There's approximately 4 streets within the Deer Path area that maybe more than just a cul-de-sac. So we've worked through as far as how we can work in tandem with them to take care of the throats of the cul-de-sacs and some other minor changes. Because we're going through changes in their contract, we thought it was appropriate to present in ordinance 2019-151. It's on the consent agenda, but I wanted to advise that it is on the agenda for your approval. What the contract includes is same terms for this current year. The following year, it would be a 1.5% increase, and then the year out from there, another 1.5%. They agreed in terms of their time and material costs to hold that through the whole length of the contract. And again, staff recommends approval of ordinance 2019-151. It's on the consent agenda.
Okay. Any comments or questions on that one? They've been doing a good job for us for a long time,
Absolutely.
so. Okay. Meeting schedule. All right, is there this is the omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through M?
A through E. I will make a motion to approve A through E and G through M, skipping F.
Okay.
Skipping F.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I said E.
The motion,
Oh. Well, I've got the summary, so there is an E. There's
all right, so
two-
you're
there-
pulling
wait a
F.
minute.
Is that what it is?
Just pulling Fs.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, time out.
No.
All right, E is for the, where's Ann? She wrote this.
E,
Well, no, I mean, so E is okay, because that's for risk management also.
Yes, E is on the agenda.
E is acceptable. It's only F that's not acceptable.
Correct.
Correct. Relates to workers' compensation specifically.
Right.
There's a minor change on F
Right.
that we wanted to bring to your attention. There is an E, but it appears that it may not be in the backup
Yeah,
material.
but E is on the full
yeah, and
Correct.
packet,
E's on our,
and E is acceptable, even though it's to the same organization.
Correct.
so A.
So my
through
motion
E.
stands.
All right, so we're pulling E.
Pulling
Pulling
F.
F.
F, okay.
So it's
All right.
A through E and G through M.
M, okay.
Can we,
The first and second agree?
are we going to talk about the adjudication process one more time? That's C.
Well, yeah, you can pull it if you want.
Yeah, let's pull that, please.
Okay.
The votes.
I wasn't sure if it was out, I didn't think it was out.
So we got C and F pulled.
Right, the first agrees.
How about the second?
Who was the second?
Who was the second on
We
this?
didn't have a second.
Oh.
Not yet.
Oh, second.
Mike?
I'll second.
Okay. So we got C pulled and we got F pulled. Okay. Okay, everybody squared away on it? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka. Aye. Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Cook,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
President Byrne.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item C, approval and passage of an ordinance 2019-134, ordinance creating a process for the administrative adjudication of ordinance violations in the village of Vernon Hills. Chief, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'd provide the board a brief overview and then address any questions that anyone might have. This, as we've talked earlier, is a ordinance to update our administrative adjudication process. We've worked to make sure that the new process is fully compliant with Illinois law and enables us to do more things under our home rule powers in the way of enforcing the more minor violations of village code. For instance, we've talked before about some of the minor retail thefts. A person that steals $2 or $3 worth of, makeup doesn't necessarily be arrested and sent to circuit court. This is a mechanism that we can deal with some of those most minor things. Non-moving traffic violations, such as not using a proper seatbelt, can be handled this way. It would also be the venue that all current parking tickets are handled. And what this makes sure is that someone that wants a hearing has an independent hearing officer available to them to contest that process, to contest any charges that they might face. But they do so in a quasi-judicial setting here held at the Village Hall on a monthly basis. And then the hearing officer determines, rather than the technical guilt or innocence, it's whether they're liable of this civil action or not liable for that conduct. It was quite a comprehensive review, and the village attorneys have worked closely with us to make sure that all of the areas of the village code that needed to be touched by this were done so. We also, as you know, the village president recommended, and the board last meeting approved the appointment of a hearing officer, Judge Tonigan, a retired Lake County presiding judge. We also have a village prosecutor already. And one of the things we've done in recent weeks is had a team meeting with all those people together. So key members of the village staff, the hearing officer, the prosecuting firm, and our village attorney sat down, making sure that everything is ready to go. When I say ready to go, with approval of this ordinance tonight, the police officers would begin issuing these citations under the new process, stop under the current process, effectively December 1st. We're going to have a training hearing in December, and then in January we'll have our first actual hearing date, and those will be held on a monthly basis going forward. So with that, I'll address any questions that any members of the board might have.
And where's the judges also doing adjudications for other municipalities?
Correct. The ones off the top of my head includes Lake Forest, Libertyville. I don't want to be inaccurate, but many more.
Oh,
Many.
okay. Well, going back to the agenda, is there a motion to approve ordinance?
I think Dave.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't.
I don't have
I didn't put the light on yet because I wasn't sure if we were taking questions first. You
Is there
didn't.
any more questions?
You didn't ask, so. So I just want to sort of play devil's advocate for this for a second and clarify what the process was before, where the money was going before. So previously, if someone had one of these minor offenses, they received a citation, it would go to the circuit court and then.
Correct.
And then.
Let me give you I'll contrast a scenario today where someone has written a citation for a seatbelt violation. They can plead guilty and pay that. That all is handled through the branch court, the Lake County court system. Eventually, a portion of those fines would get sent back to the village, a portion of them. If they wanted to contest that, they would have to go to branch court and have a trial in front of a judge. And if they're found guilty for that violation, in addition to the fine they would face for the seatbelt, they would be responsible for court cost, which could be in excess of $200 for a ticket that would otherwise be much less. And they could be walking out the door, $200 to $300 out of pocket. That would be contrasted to a municipal citation written for violation of not wearing a seatbelt. The person can plead guilty and write that, and I believe that's a $50 fine. I could double check. That gets paid just like a parking ticket to the village, our processing center. If they want to contest it, they have two options now. They could either appear in front of the hearing officer in person on that hearing date and contest that, have a quasi trial. The hearing officer can dismiss it or can hold them liable. If they're found liable, there would be a $25 hearing fee added on to the fine of, say, $50. Their other option, which is even more convenient, allows them to enter a written response and have the judge consider that evidence without them being in person. And then the judge, the hearing officer, would make a decision whether they're liable or not, and the person doesn't even have to appear. Couple other benefits that come with this is the officers don't have to appear in these administrative adjudication settings. Their hearsay is allowed, their tickets stand on the face, their report can be read into the record for the hearing officer, and so it cuts down on some of the times that our officers have to appear and spend time in court waiting for a court, a case to be called.
So in your estimation, how much for a no seatbelt fine, how much would the village receive from that?
In the current process?
In the current process?
Probably between 25 and 30% of whatever the fine is, and less of the court fees that typically go to everyone but the village.
And less of it, or none of the court
Maybe
fees?
none of it. I can't say with certainty, but I know it's a very small amount that comes back to the village.
So once again, playing devil's advocate, I just want to make sure that the community doesn't have concerns that our police officers are now going to be looking for every person without a seatbelt now that we're getting all the money.
Yeah.
And that every young person who's out past curfew isn't going to be.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that concern. I'd like to state on the record unequivocally that I will not give direction. I have not ever given direction to police officers to go out there and make enforcement decisions about revenue, period. And part of the reason I'm uncertain about some of your questions is because I don't spend any time looking about the revenue or the dollars that come in from our enforcement action. That's not our mission. That's not what we direct people to do, and it's not going to be in this. This process does provide a much more convenient avenue for people that are cited, and people will continue to be cited. Another real clear distinction is whether or not a person that gets arrested, is held for a minor offense. The example of $2.50 in retail theft is not unrealistic. That happens all the time. Presently, their name goes in the blotter, they go to court, there's a court record for that offense. And this enables us an option short of that stays local and nothing goes in the paper, nothing gets reported on the blotter. So we don't lose the ability that we have to send, and we still will send some charges to court for sure, but these minor things we think we can much more readily handle here locally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve item C?
So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further comments or questions? If none, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Cook,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka,
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next item is, that's pulled is F. And we all just got a memo, right, from Ann, that it's an 11-month pay period.
Yes, when we presented this at the last meeting, we compared everything on an annual basis, and we just need to update the motion here to reflect an 11-month premium. So when we did the cost comparison, we did 12 month to 12 months so you could see the change, but the actual time period here is 11 months. So the dollar amount is a little bit less,
Which it should be.
as it should be, yes, sir.
Right, the idea was to get the expiration and the start dates of both policies at the same time. They were currently a month off. Now the renewal period is exactly the same date.
Okay. Is everybody clear with that? And what's the actual dollar amount then that we gotta plug in?
486, 214.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-149, authorizing an agreement with the Illinois County's Risk Management Trust to provide workers' compensation insurance in the amount of $486,214 for a period of January 1 through December 1. Is that December 1 or is it November? Was there 31 days in November?
Says December 1.
30 days?
it says December 1st.
Okay.
Says December
Well, that's what this says. So, okay, through December 1st, 2020.
Okay,
11 months, not the full 12.
there's a second?
Second.
Any further comments or questions? If none, roll call.
Trustee Takaoka.
Aye.
Trustee Schultz.
Aye.
Trustee Markwart.
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Aye.
Trustee Cook.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
President Byrne.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. We're gonna do the update now, right? And the contract extension for advanced disposal?
That's correct.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. Tonight, it is our intention to provide a summary of the waste disposal market, share information regarding staff research on municipal service options, share what neighboring towns are paying for services, provide a progressive option for waste services for Vernon Hills, and answer any questions the board may have. We have Chris Manley and Bob Pfister from Advanced in the audience tonight, and they'll be approaching after my comments and after Ed's comments. This past summer, the village learned that Waste Management was seeking to acquire Advanced Disposal, the village's current vendor for refuse and recycling. Vernon Hills still has approximately 1 year remaining on its contract, which expires November 30th, 2020. SWALCO, which assists Lake County governments in managing their refuse and recycling efforts, suggested that communities like Vernon Hills, who are under contract with Advance, should begin to look at their options, evaluate their options, and prepare for a potential change in ownership. And with the changes in the recycling industry, to include China no longer taking recyclables, we must assess how market conditions are going to impact the future contracts, our municipality, and our residents. Prior to engaging representatives from Advanced on a possible extension, an internal and external assessment was conducted to determine what additional services were desired, along with cost and what our realistic options included. Members of our community have expressed a desire for either a food composting or food scrapping program, which is also known as organics collection. There is also a desire for year-round electronics drop-off points within the village, and the police department and the community is in need of having a sharps collection point for used needles. Village staff initially consulted SWALCO to determine service options, and the guidance included having village staff first attempt to negotiate directly with our current provider to determine if the additional services we desire could be made available in an extension offer prior to a likely acquisition by Waste Management and prior to the current contract expiring. The philosophy behind this approach is if a contract extension on favorable terms could not be achieved, the only other options would be to negotiate directly with Waste Management for an extension with less competition existing, or issue an RFP, again with less competition existing, should Advance be acquired by Waste Management Incorporated. During our initial meetings with Advance, staff shared what services we desired, and we were advised each program comes with a specific cost. Electronics recycling comes with a cost. Food scrapping comes with a cost, and needle collection points would come with a cost. In addition, with the uncertainty of the recycling industry, recyclables, which were once viewed as a commodity to the disposal industry and had value, are now seen as a liability, and future contracts that have a recycling component will have a price adjustment, which in translation means increased cost to reflect current market conditions. During negotiations, one concept proposed was the idea recently implemented in Pleasant Prairie, and that is the concept of every other week recycling collection for this municipality. Village staff consulted with SWALCO, and we were advised this is a progressive concept that can save the vendor, municipality, and ultimately the residential customer money, and if conducted properly, recycling rates can be maintained while reducing emissions and impacts on our roadways. The immediate impacts include, currently, Advance provides services for residential disposal services for our community. 11 trucks are utilized each week for the disposal of waste and recycling service. It is anticipated by transitioning to every other week recycling, 4 less trucks would be on village roadways each week. This aspect of every other week recycling contributes to SWALCO's goals of reducing greenhouse emissions by using less trucks. In addition to the traffic impacts of having 11 disposal trucks being in our neighborhoods each week, SWALCO has shared the impact of each heavy vehicle is estimated to be the equivalent of 9,600 cars impacting our roadways and their lifespans. Our initial study of this concept indicates there will be concerns about how the concept of every other week recycling would impact each household to include the storing of recyclables for up to 2 weeks. During our research on this topic, we learned an HOA within Vernon Hills, the Carriages of Grosse Pointe, already implemented this concept of every other week recycling as part of their contract to save money. We also learned Advanced has made a choice of carts available for residents based on their needs and space limitations. These carts are displayed on my right, and they'll continue to do so as an option going forward. As every other week recycling contributes to less trucks on roadways, less emissions, the question obviously is, what is the economic incentive for our community to implement this concept village-wide? As the village is a member of SWALCO, the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County, we were able to access the monthly cost for refuse and recycling of the 17 nearby communities and see what they pay. And with the assistance of Ed McKee, who joined our negotiating team, we are going to share what we learned and what we were able to negotiate. Ed, if you want to take it from here?
Sure. The 17 communities that we looked at in the area that offer curbside collection for both the 95-gallon refuse and 65-gallon recycling, the average cost we estimate to be $20.28 per month, and our current cost is $18.71 per month. So we're about $1.50 or 7% less than the average. And there are a lot of factors that go into that, and you can't say in one town it costs X and the next town it's going to cost exactly the same based on the distance to the disposal facility and other factors.
Where are we at right now?
We're at $18.71
That's for both.
for recycling and the waste.
Once a week recycling and once a week.
That's correct. John explained the additional services, the electronics, the food scrapping, needle collection, and then the every other week schedule.
Needle.
Advanced is willing to keep the prices at the current rates for 2 years. When we looked at this, we had 3 concerns as staff. One is, would the volume of the recyclables decline? And we investigated that, and it appears that there's almost no change by going to an every other week schedule. Second concern we had was the ability of customers to handle an every other week collection schedule due to the volume being generated. And Advanced has offered to allow customers to upgrade to a different size bin, and we understand that that will accommodate many people. However, maybe not all, in terms of people with maybe a multifamily setting where there isn't a lot of room to store their bin inside. And then third, are the economics attractive enough to bring this to the board? And based on them freezing the price for 2 years and working with SWALCO and looking at the underlying economics, they believe that this is worthy of consideration by the board, that we're getting enough value out of these additional services and the freeze to make us consider an every other week schedule. So we really...
You said that the recycling doesn't drop off. That was based on, the study, was that based on strictly the carriages, or was that including a good number of single-family homes?
That was based on broad analysis in the disposal field, not our internal experience within the village.
Okay.
So at this point, we really have two options. One, do we want to consider this contract extension, pick up the new services, and kind of lock in the current pricing for refuse collection and recycling? Or do we want to wait till April, May of next year and do a comprehensive RFP process and a full bidding to the market? So that's kind of the decision before the board. We have two representatives in the audience who can answer any technical questions, but I think it's more of a philosophy of the board. Do we want to make these additional services available, and do we want to lock in the current market prices based on where we're at?
Okay. Trustee Oppenheim.
So you say there are two options, and I see the rates that was sent to us in our packet in the transmittal. But what about the third option of continuing with the weekly refuse and weekly recycling, and also having electronics and the organics? Is that a possibility?
So I guess I'll start.
I'll defer to Advanced on that.
And what would be the cost for that? Because right now, all we have is switching over to the every other week recycling, and then we get those other two things along with it, or keeping things the way they are weekly and not having those two. But what about?
So if I'm understanding the question, could the third option be status quo, and then we add the composting, the scrapping, organics collection, and
Right.
electronics drop-off? And so I believe the answer is yes. So on the second page of the handout, there is a cost for that, but you'll see electronics drop-off is not included, and the ride-along organics is not included. So it will take a significant amount more work to do that, because they're going to have to change the location of the current organics provider. So right now, the scrapping for next season is going to a place in the Antioch area, I believe it's at Phelan. And so they'll have to renegotiate going is Island Lake for the new location. Then they'll have to bid out for the electronics recycling and the needle collection as well. The concern with that is, obviously, we feel like we are running out of time. We don't know when the acquisition is going to occur of Waste Management. So this was their, as I understand it, best offer for every other week recycling. There is a second offer right there, but you'll see the cost for electronics recycling and organics collection and the needle collection are not included. So I guess we would have to spend more time researching what that would be in addition to these services.
Yeah. They did not provide an option that it says keep the every week recycling and then also add the 3 new services. We did not get an offer for that from the vendor. If that's your question.
That is my question. How much more would it be? How much are we? How much is the cost of what we're paying going toward that if we're giving up a pretty significant service of
Right.
2 times a week, 2 times a month recycling?
You want to approach? And so again, so if I understand the question being asked is if we stay status quo and then go a la carte on 3 additional options, are you prepared to share what that may cost the village going forward for a 5-year contract?
Well, good evening. First of all, my name is Bob Pfister. I'm the Municipal Marketing Manager for Advanced Disposal. And unfortunately, we don't have those numbers with us tonight, so I can't tell you what it would be for, tonight I can't. We can get them for you, but I don't have them tonight, what that would be. I just don't. I'm sorry. We weren't
Well,
prepared
the
for it.
other thing that concerns me is did we lay this out for the community yet, or is this the first true rollout?
So
You know what I mean? I'm talking like a survey or something. Good
That's
God.
pretty significant, I would
Yeah,
imagine, for
garbage
people.
is
That's one of the main
Get
things we
upset
do.
about that.
They're going to be upset if they're
Yeah,
if
yeah.
now all of a sudden they're inundated with the recyclables that they
I
can't.
want recycling every week.
Yeah.
There's no doubt I generate
Yeah.
a ton, and I know all my neighbors do too, because
Yeah.
most of them have
So,
recycling bins.
so apparently you must be saving a lot of money by switching over to every other week recycling. Otherwise, you wouldn't have offered these other services for free, essentially, or included in that cost. So it must be.
Well, and that's right.
Yeah.
And what we tried to do was we heard the village, you know, we heard you, that you would like some additional programs, and we thought we were looking for a way to get those programs to the village and not increase the cost.
Right.
So by going to every other week recycling, we can save money from our costs, but we can also absorb the cost of those and keep the price the same. So to answer your question succinctly, yes.
I would imagine the vast majority of the people in our community are utilizing the every week recycling much more than they would utilize the electronics drop-off or the ride-along organics, which I think is a great idea to do that, but I think there's going to be a lot of pushback about giving up.
Oh, yeah.
I
And
agree.
can I ask which
Yeah,
size
well-
can most of your neighbors use?
Which I
The middle or the small?
I think the majority use what we
For
do,
recycling? Because most of the community, when they were first put out, were the 35s, which are the small one to the
Yeah.
left, correct?
That's what we have, honestly, that in the space that's in our garage, right next to the door, that's all we could fit is
Right.
the small recycle and the medium-sized garbage. There's just not room there, the way our home was built. But I don't know, which models, other models where I live, can fit more.
Trustee
Well-
Schultz? Okay, I'm sorry, you want to answer?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, you can answer.
What I kind of wanted to bring up is you know, I've got some experience in other areas outside of Chicago. I've handled the Minnesota market and the Wisconsin market. We just started a town up in New Richmond, Wisconsin, which is just east of Minneapolis. It's right across the St. Croix River there. They started with every other week recycling, just went to that. We didn't see any decrease in any of the volume. It's a 64-gallon cart program. So those residents are recycling every other week with a 64-gallon. We probably have maybe 7 to 8% of them have opted for the larger container for the 95. But for the most part, we use an education program because we have a huge amount of contamination in the recycling carts right now. If we think back to recycling when it started, we had the 2-bin program, we had the paper in one, and we had everything else in the other. Well, our drivers could go through and pick out the contamination and leave it on the curb. But then we went to convenience for workers' comp, for residents, we went to the single sort system. And with that, we've seen the contamination rates go from 8, 9% back in 2008 to over 20% now. People are putting more and more items into recycling. We call it wish cycling. They hope it's recycling, so they give it a shot and it goes in. But what happens is the processing facilities now they're mostly automated. So those contaminants that maybe they would be recycled in a different program, they aren't acceptable in the residential. If you talk about residential, it's more containers. It's what we have for food containers, what we have for Tide and whatnot. That's what a residential program is for. So what happens is that material gets sent to the landfill because it's just not accepted there. China has shut out recycling, so the value of commodities has plummeted. And the processing costs have increased because what China did, they said, with the material we're going to take, you can only have a 0.5% contamination rate in that material that comes across. And there's not a processing facility in the U.S. that was set for that. So we see right now our trucks being assessed contamination fees just by the loader who looks out and says, oh, that's contaminated, here's your charge for contamination. So along with an education program, which we started up in New Richmond, we saw the contamination level drop and we saw people can really get by with the smaller containers. I was just up in Hudson, Wisconsin last night, which is just across the border from the Twin Cities. They just renewed their contract for 5 years, going from weekly recycling to bi-weekly recycling. With the cost of processing, with the cost of recycling, we as an industry have to find a way to bring these costs down for the municipalities, because at some point, it's just not going to be feasible to continue to pay these fees. And that's what we're trying to do here, is bring alternatives to the village of Vernon Hills so that it'll give you an option so that you can add these programs, keep your costs low, and still have a viable recycling program. I really, truly believe that every other week recycling is going to be the norm in the future. There's just no reason to pick it up every week, not with the wear and tear in the streets. The new trucks are between 300,000 and 350,000 apiece.
And just to give you an example, 2 years ago, when we look at recycling, the commodities as a whole, for our company, we were collecting about $10 a ton. That was 2 years ago. Last year, this time, we were paying $25 a ton to recycle, and right now, we're paying about $70 a ton for recycling. And the staff is aware of this, the entire county is aware of what's going on with recycling. So you can see how quickly it went from where recycling used to be something where we used to use to help subsidize the cost of the program, to now you went from that 10, receiving 10, to paying 25 last year, to paying 70 now, and then the contamination rates are charged, assessed to us on top of that. The contamination piece, I want to emphasize again, because most people weren't aware. I know I addressed the board several months ago, those of you who were here, but a lot of people aren't aware that for the last year and a half, anything that you put and you tie into a bag,
Plastic bag.
recycling, if it's in a plastic bag, when it gets to the recycle processor, that plastic bag, even if it's filled with aluminum cans, goes in the garbage. They only want loose. So as Bob was talking about starting out with a whole new, fresh campaign, there really is an awareness that has to take place as to how to recycle right, versus what people have been doing forever, thinking that it's been okay, and it's not. The whole process has to change. So that really is, and again, there is a savings for us. When we first talked about doing this together, when we were approached about some of the new programs that you wanted, we were also at that same time talking to staff about some of the issues that we're facing, being the change from receiving 10 to paying 70. At the time these conversations started, I think we were paying about 40. So in the last several months, that 40's turned to 70, as well as contamination rates keep going up. So there is a savings in the every other week recycling. That savings, we're hoping to, we've given you the programs, the additional programs that you had asked for, and we're also trying to offset the losses that we've been incurring over the last 2 years, trying to figure out a way to. The only other choice is to, as you look at RFPs and stuff, you can see at the pricing there the difference. And that's where we really feel you're going to see from us and from all the other haulers, as these rates continue to, the recycling continues to go down and the processing continues to go up. That's what we're facing right now.
But
Just
those,
my
but our,
turn?
Yeah. Trustee Schultz, and then trustee Cook, then trustee Takioka.
Leaf, grass, food scrap, are you proposing that's bi-weekly also?
No.
No,
Oh,
weekly.
That will still be weekly?
Right,
So
and-
that someone doesn't have to store their yard clippings for a
Right.
2-week period? Okay.
And what we are also offering trustees to start these programs this April, even though that's in the last year of the current contract.
Right.
We would
I
start these
understood
programs
that.
early and not wait for the new contract.
Okay, what is contamination?
Contamination is an item that's put into the residential recycling program that is not accepted by the.
Give me,
And I'll
give me
give you a
something-
great example, and people don't think about this, but one of the biggest
Plastic bags.
diapers. People put diapers in recycling because of the plastic and whatnot. That's a contaminant that would be taken out and that would go there.
All right.
A garden hose, although it's recyclable in other ways, it's not recyclable in the residential program.
What about this?
Because it's a,
Styrofoam, number 6, not recyclable, a
no
contaminant.
styrofoam.
See, but that's
Red
one of the
Solo
problems.
cups.
Yeah,
Red-
that's one of the problems, though. You wonder why people are confused. Who makes those and is given the authority to put a recycling label on them?
Yeah.
TS6.
Trustee,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. There has to be a marked change in the packaging requirements, and it's just not, we're dealing with it at the other end, but it's got to be changed at the higher end. Red Solo cups are polystyrene too. A lot of people don't know that.
Can I,
They're not recyclable.
I'm looking at the Swalco recycling guidelines poster here. Do you think that you could distribute a weather-resistant
my recycling.
sticker that you can put on all of the
That's actually in
cans?
the proposal. Swalco has a sticker.
Okay.
That we've talked to staff about, and we've agreed to put that sticker on every single container. Basically, again, it's a recycle right. I call it a back to basics program. When you think about what we used to do years ago with the milk jugs and the pop bottles and the water bottles and paper and cardboard, it was very basic. And we need to get back to that basic type of recycling and away from the wish cycling that Bob's talking about. And that sticker helps people do that. It's pretty specific as to what they want recycled
And
on that sticker.
do things need to be rinsed out? In other words, like a ketchup bottle. Is a ketchup bottle recyclable?
It is.
But it needs to be clean, or?
We ask that it be cleaned. If it gets to the processing, so, I mean, if it's got a big chunk in the bottom,
Yeah.
it's not going to be able to be blown into the plastics container because it's going to be too heavy, so it would fall into contamination. I'm not a processor, but that would be my recollection. That's why we want everything rinsed as much as possible.
Another one of those catch-22s, because then you waste water cleaning out that bottle, and water should be conserved in recycled places.
You know, another point I wanted to make for you guys is that in your current contract, recycling is unlimited. So if someone fills their cart and they've got an extra garbage can next to it with recycling marked on it, we take all that now anyway. So this doesn't change when you go to every other week. Someone who has the small cart or the medium cart, if that's not enough space, you still have that ability to put out as much recycling as you want, and we'll still take that away.
Now, is corrugated recyclable, even though say it has tape on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I'd like to bring up one other point, that we did a lot of thinking about going to every other week recycling. And there will be no residence day change. There will not be a day change. So if you're picked up on Monday, your recycling would also be still picked up on Monday, but it would be every other week. If you're on Tuesday, it would be every other week on Tuesday. So there won't be, we've tried to take out as much confusion, potential confusion with the residents to make sure that it's easy for them. We go around for the first 3 weeks to go through that on the off week, and we tag them and say, you know, you're on the wrong week. And after 3 weeks, you really kind of at that point have to stop it, because then you just keep enabling them after that. But my point is, it's just not cold turkey. We work with the residents on that too. And there's a huge education campaign going on through Swalco. I was on the Illinois Task Force for recycling contamination along with Walter Willis. We had a statewide coalition of processors, haulers, government officials to come up with a uniform recycling program with what can be recycled, and it was a great thing to do. So we put a lot of thought into this to try to make it convenient for the residents, but I really do think that every other week recycling is the way we're going to go, because costs for our industry just keep going up. Our labor costs keep going up. We go to C&G and we go that, so we've kind of kept fuel costs.
My only final comment is that I don't care how big the education program is going to be, and it needs to be big, and every can needs to have that, whatever size that turns out to be, 5 by 7 or whatever sticker adhered to every one. But this is going to create the largest amount of screaming that this community has ever heard, or this board has ever heard, and this staff has ever heard. So it's what you're asking for is not unreasonable, especially seeing as how we are, in your words, wish cycling, and we need to really become more cognizant of everything is not recyclable, no matter how many triangles are printed on the article. I'm done.
Trustee Cook.
Well, the size of the sign, because they were nice enough to drop off a 65 at my house so I could check out the size of it. The sticker is rather large. It takes up almost the whole lid of a 65, and it's very clearly delineated what it is. The problem is, and I'm going to be able to go 2 weeks with the 65, I believe, because I did not put out recycling today, and the 65 is about 60% filled. So in theory, if you go from the 35 to the 65, you should be able to do the other week. The problem is, those are actually a little large, as you were saying. They get, and it's sometimes a matter of just a few inches, 4 or 5 inches too big. It sort of fits in my garage, being in a multifamily. I took it over to a friend of mine over in Plymouth Farms and checked it in one of their garages, and their garages are even a little bit smaller than ours, and it just, I mean, it becomes a monstrosity in that garage. They cannot go bigger than a 35 in those garages over there. That's one of the problems. Another problem when you're multifamily, the food scrapping, and I think we talked about this, the food scrapping goes in with the, like lawn clippings and stuff like that?
Right, with the yard waste.
What if you don't have lawn clippings? Are you, is there a way to food scrap?
Yes, we do. We started 2 food scrap programs this last year, one in Northbrook and one in Wilmette. And what the people are using that don't have a lawn waste service, they're using the very smallest cart there. They're lining it with like a craft, almost like a yard waste bag, and they're putting their food scraps in that. That way when the truck comes, they can just pull that bag with the food in and out, and their container is not filled with mashed potatoes and stuff like that. So that is working well.
So you need a third container.
Yeah, that's the,
If
now I've
you
got
don't
it.
have, if you're not currently doing yard waste and you just wanted to add
So, Mayor,
food scraps,
can I
you
jump
would
in on
add
this
a
one, too?
container to your house.
But would that be adding a third container?
So one of the challenges of this food scrapping component and the ask is, even the people asking realize this is coming so quick, and the industry, I don't think, is caught up yet. The HOAs are not part of this concept, so this is for single-family residents at this time, correct?
Mhm.
Chris?
And we,
I think we proposed it for everybody, but if they can't do it, then.
So like when we had the conversations with some of the
Right.
HOAs and doing the strategy on this, one of the concerns is
It'd be-
some of the HOAs don't want this. They do not want another container. They do not, the ones that have contracts with landscapers, they're not going to have the yard bag for the residents to put out. So that is one of the challenges that when we had our meetings with Go Green and came back, no one knows what to do with that. SWACO at this point doesn't know what to do. And one of the discussions, I think I jokingly shared this with you, Mayor, is some people have suggested, well, can't the village buy land and put something in Vernon Hills like a scrapping pile or a compost pile? And I don't think people realize that how much permitting that is and how you have to go through the state. And then again, which subdivision is going to volunteer to have that next to them? So that ask by Go Green was, could we have a location in the village, like a village-run scrapping pile for the HOAs? And again, we know that if we thought bringing this was, moving quick, imagine that ask.
I can tell you where that location's gonna be, and I can speak for everybody in the community, over there.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had that before here. We've had, 2 people lived on the same block with a park say, yeah, it'd be good, put it at the end of block, at his end. And the guy who lived at that end said, no, put it at his end. So very simply, where would that go? Over there, not here. So, I mean, that would be a problem, finding a place like that everybody could consider was over there.
Yeah.
But
Getting there.
the weekly might work, but right now I'd also like to still get some more feedback. We've got a couple other HOAs that are going to be having meetings that I can get feedback from.
we'd be happy to talk about the HOAs if there's an issue like that. We'd be
Yeah.
happy to come back and look at individual items where there
Well,
may be.
the 65 will, for my purposes, would take the 2 weeks, but it's barely fittable and still get a car in the garage.
Trustee
So I'm going
Pacquiao.
to agree with you. I think all the HOAs need to have some options to go through because we should not make this decision on their behalf. You're a family of 2. I have 4 to 6 kids. At one point in my home, all my neighbors have 2 to 3 to 4 kids.
Sure.
They're right. I got tons of recycling. So my question is, what's the difference if we renewed after our term expires versus now? Is it going to cost more? Is it, or, I mean, is this aggressive enough pricing?
The main
versus
issue
coming out to an
is
RFP?
that in the next several months, Waste Management and then they have a monopoly on all the landfills, the transfer stations, the transportation sites. And if you look at the villages that have Waste Management right now, they're several dollars higher than ours.
Okay. So what's our other alternative?
Go out for bid.
I mean, what's the other alternative as far as waste management services?
Lake Shore.
Okay.
That's the
I mean,
group.
if there's no, I mean, a monopoly to me means there's really no other alternative, but if there are other alternatives, you know, I can't, you know, I'm not gonna necessarily approve something without an RFP. I'm in a business that RFPs are routine just to make sure. Your service is great, that's not the issue, because if your service was poor, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I need to know, are there any other alternatives
One
out
of the
there?
issues, though, before you were on the board.
Okay.
Was the last transition we had, and that didn't go too well. We had a lot of gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands when we changed waste haulers.
Okay.
Because there's a learning curve. And so if we have to go through that learning curve, we're gonna have probably 2 months worth of disappointments. Again, we'll get through it, but this precludes that because we're dealing with the team that's in
Right.
place and maintaining our costs.
Not something to
Well,
do lightly.
yeah, that's one of the keys that
Right.
I don't think you'd get in an RFP
Okay.
is 2 years without an increase, and then CPI for the 3 years after that. I think any RFP we would do would probably be
I
higher than
think
that.
I can give you a pretty good example of
Sure.
why it might make sense. We renewed a contract, again, like I told you, the receiving 10, paying 25, paying 70. We renewed a contract last year in December where the village took an increase from us of an additional 50 cents at that time in order to help us with the recycle burden. That was at $25. So 1 year later, we're paying 70. We take on that burden because it's in their contract that once they paid that 50 cents, there's nothing in there that says, hey, if it gets to this, you pay more. So we accept that burden going forward.
So you absorb the
We
price
just don't know, again, how fast this is going. We don't know where it's gonna be a year from now when we come back, or next summer, when we come back to talk about this again. Will that 25 to 70 be 90? Will it be 100? We don't know, and all that change is potentially adding to your cost. And if it's happening to us, we know that it's happening to all of our competitors as well. We all use Gray's Lake, we all use Lake Shore, we all use Swank down in Elk Grove. We all use the same facilities to process our material, and we're all dealing with the same problem. So that just gives you something to think about as well.
Yeah, and so if I could just succinctly say what Chris said was there's that
What do you got?
any risk of increased recycling costs in our proposal is borne by us. There's no risk at additional recycling borne by you at all. We've taken that risk for the 5
But you will price out keeping weekly recycling. We understand the every other benefits you guys. I get that. But we're talking about convenience, and I know if I took a poll of my neighbors, they want once a week recycling. So I definitely think we should see that and maybe get some more pricing, take it to the HOAs, and let's table this until December 10th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We can certainly do that. Obviously, we will.
Yeah.
Just a couple things. People hate change, as we all know that. People hate change.
Well, they do, but then when it could, economics comes into play. I mean, if you're telling me there's another hauler that has a great track record, that would be, 20% less, I guess it's easy. I guess the whole transition, it could, the service could go down. I get that, but then, then why have competitors out there that could potentially offer equal or greater service? And not even looking to me is kind of, I don't know. That's just my perspective. Purely business. I mean, and the residents, I think, would be, happy to know that at least we do some research and due diligence when we're going out to an RFP and signing a 5-year contract. And, and signing it, a year before termination. I get what's going on with waste management. Sure, there's a danger there, I guess, if you want to call it that, but I think we should at least table this till next meeting.
Okay, is there a motion to table?
I'll motion to table.
Is there a second?
Okay, you got your motion second.
First,
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Wait, could,
That, discussion on that, yeah.
can we still have further discussion? I wasn't ready to stop that. So.
We're not ready.
But now you've got the,
We have them here, so we should.
what's that? Yeah.
Well, when you make a motion to table, that's it.
Yeah, yeah, all you can really talk about then is the motion to table, but unless they withdraw the motion.
You want to speak?
Yeah, I just don't want.
Okay, motion to withdraw the motion.
Okay, is the second agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So a couple of things. I first had one more of the direct questions about the items in terms of cardboard. I know it's asked on here to be flattened. How significant is that for flattening cardboard versus giving you the whole box?
Well, we asked that it be flattened next to the container. If you try to put a box into the container, it fills up so quickly that you won't have any room for it. That's why we ask it to be flattened next to the cart.
I have the smallest container, so it's very difficult for me to flatten it all to get it inside of the container.
Well, no, it needs to, you put it on the side.
Right, so if I put it on the side, do you still need to have it flattened, or could I have a box right there? And I just want to know if there are any significance on the recycling end. Is it like it doesn't fit through the machine, or is there really a problem? So that's kind of a soft request to have all that, because it takes a long time to cut up all the Amazon boxes to make sure that they're all flattened versus just putting some of them next to it.
That request to have it flattened is really to help you utilize your space. But yes, you can put, some people will put a box there and put the other boxes.
Put the other boxes inside.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
I
I
just
would
want,
caution you, though, when you have boxes that aren't broken down and you put them next to a container, if the wind gets them, they could blow around the neighborhood. So when they're flattened and they're put together and next to the cart or under the cart, it keeps them from blowing around the neighborhood. So it's a caution.
Yeah.
That you just need to be aware of that.
I understand that, but I just wanted to know to what extent that was concerned. It's obviously different than the concern about putting diapers in the recycle and putting hoses and everything else. So you can still take that. So
Or you could you tie the boxes with a twine? That's recyclable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. The point is, sometimes if I just have two boxes, I don't want to spend the time to go out to get the knife to cut them up so that I could do it, or stamp on them long enough that they're flat, kind of thing.
Wait till you're retired. I
What?
cut everything into small strips and stack it in there neatly.
Well, you probably make a puzzle out of it and
Yes.
fit them all in. So my other comment was, even just looking at the cost here, and if we forget about the benefit of the electronics and the ride-along organics, if you look at the 95-gallon once a week, even out to 2024, comparing our monthly cost, I don't know about your cost, but our monthly rate, we're only talking like $2 a month. We're talking a $25 savings a year or so for us to give up half of our recycling opportunities. $25 for half of that. And I think a lot of people will be
If it's the same.
upset. That's even at the largest
Yeah,
side.
and we thought it was prudent for us to bring that before the board to show you the difference between every other week and weekly.
Right.
That there is a cost savings that could be done should you wish to go to every other week recycling. And that's really what we tried to do here was
Right.
to show you
Right, and
that we
and
could
that's
add the
why-
programs, keep the price low for you, and still keep your recycling program first rate.
So once again, I want to know, is it, in addition to that $2, is it an extra $1 to get the electronic drop-off and the organics, or is it another $10 or $5? What that differential is, so.
And
yeah.
we'd be happy to bring that back to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry I wasn't prepared for that tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
I got one last question. Needle collection. How big of a demand is there in this community for needle collection?
There's a number of
So what do? You collect
municipalities
the
that
red
have-
box from someone's house if they use needles, or?
Yeah, it's like a big sharps container.
Yeah,
that
I know
people
what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it gets,
reflect-
it
We
gets
w-
used quite a bit.
Yeah, we would have one here in the village hall, we would have one at the police department.
Oh, okay.
So you drop them off, it's kind of like when you drop off your prescription drugs.
Prescription.
We've had a couple of our employees stuck by needles because people don't dispose of them properly.
Right.
And when you reach into the drug box to pull out the
Okay.
drugs, they get poked.
All right, so, what are we gonna do as far as informing? We gotta inform the residents. And we gotta put
I think we should
something out
start with
there.
the HOAs at a minimum. I mean,
Okay, well, yeah,
Now, the interesting thing is with the HOAs is even in our current contract, they're eligible to negotiate their own rates. They don't have to go with Advance. If you take a drive-by on garbage day, which we did yesterday, there's 3 or 4 different services that are out there picking it up. So they are able to contract with their own, drive their own prices. As we mentioned, the carriage homes went to every other week recycling 5 years ago. So that's something that they negotiated themselves with Advance, I believe.
really? At
All
a
right.
better rate?
Yeah, what, do you know, is that a cost measure, or they just didn't like the trucks in
Cost.
there?
Cost, it was cheaper.
I just can't imagine it was
So really,
that much cheaper that it was.
versus the whole community going to one singular route of once a week or twice a week or whatever, every other week.
Yeah, they do, though. There's a number of the HOAs that have contracted with different pickups. Groot picks up on a number of the apartment buildings and stuff in town.
well, you see a little bit of everybody at the, in the business parks and the retail.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's all kinds of,
Right.
people picking stuff up, and it's not obviously just you guys.
Okay, I would like to see more comprehensive price lists, and I think we got to figure out a way to get it out there to the residents.
Yep, absolutely. There's only 8,000 residential buildings in town. So,
And most of them watch these meetings anyway, so they'll know.
put it on Facebook.
I'll-
Oh, yeah. They're glued to their TVs.
Well, we'll work with Lynn in the back, who's taking copious notes.
Okay,
I mean,
all right. Well, we don't have to table it tonight. We're just,
Yeah, there's no vote, there's no official vote, so
No.
this was just a presentation, so you don't
yeah,
have to renew
and
that.
then bring it back. We probably, maybe got to have a special meeting for this one.
Could be.
The residents want to come and,
Yeah, and I do want to point out that we do have Ed's got the prices for 17 communities around here, regardless of who the carriers are and what they're being charged. So, I mean, in terms of a comprehensive study on what we could be paying, we already have those numbers. Most of the communities
other
are higher.
haulers?
Other haulers, yes.
okay, fair enough. I'd like to.
Yeah, there's like 17 different. Is that included in the chart that they have already, Ed? No. Okay. Well, then we'll get that for you.
okay. We'll see you in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity. Have a good night.
Sounds like you guys should invent a flux capacitor. So we could just stick it in our, in our cars. Somebody's working on that, right? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, guys. All right, next is, now, this one, am I going through this now under new business? Oh, go ahead. Oh, you want to talk about recycling and garbage? Okay.
My name is Jennifer Hoffman, and I'm currently president with the board for Plymouth Farms Homeowners Association. First, I want to say thank you to Trustee Cook for coming over and showing the cans this weekend. For some residents, I do believe that would be of a concern to have to go to something even larger than the smallest can. And if we have to go to a situation where we'd have 3 cans, I can't do 3 cans. I'm sure most of the other people in the HOA cannot as well. We do have a board meeting for our HOA this coming Thursday. So I do want to present to the people there at that meeting and see if I can gauge some interest from them and see what they say, what their concerns are, if there are any, and then I can relay that back. So, but it sounds like from what I understood that for the most part, we can keep the small cans, or they're going to continue that size under the new proposed contract. Is that-
Yes, that's correct. You can keep the size, they said, and if someone wanted to upsize because they were concerned about volume, they would provide the additional carts at no charge.
Okay, so we're not required to upsize
Correct.
to the new recycle once a week or every other week?
Correct.
Okay, good. Then I can
right.
present that correctly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, the next item is approval and passage of ordinance 2019-146. Special use allowing restaurant to serve alcoholic beverages commonly known as 60 and 21 Cafe and Wine Bar Kiosk located in the center court of Hawthorn Mall, 122 Hawthorn Center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can give you a brief summary of what's proposed and what happened at the Planning and Zoning Commission. And by the way, first off, this is under new business because we're trying to work with Hawthorn so they could have the center court open in time for Black Friday. So that's why we have this on new business rather than the cow. And it's why we have the Liquor Commission meeting following the regular board meeting rather than preceding it. So that way we get the zoning entitlements in place first, and then a request for the liquor license. So what's being requested for you tonight has to do with the overall redevelopment of the center court of Hawthorn Mall. As the board is aware, this has been under construction for the last almost 2 months now. And part of this renovation includes the cafe and wine bar that would be located within a kiosk within center court. The kiosk and the surrounding tables and chairs would take up approximately 320 square feet of center court. Shown on this screen is an area that is surrounded by a decorative fence with planters. This is the area where people that might be consuming beer and wine would be able to consume the beer and wine. They'd have to be within this enclosed area. Just to give you an overview of what Cafe 6021 is they would offer small plates, especially small plates. They'd offer pastries, non-alcoholic beverages such as sodas and coffee, and then again, in addition to that, the beer and wine. So the Planning and Zoning Commission considered their request for the special use at their meeting on November 13th. And at that meeting, on a vote of 7 in favor and none against, the commission recommended approval of the special use permit. They determined that the decorative fence and planters would effectively separate those customers that are consuming beer and wine from the general public. And further, they determined that this location would not have a negative impact of the area in accordance with Section 18.3 of the zoning code. So again, it's a recommendation to approve. So if the board concurs with the Planning and Zoning recommendation and feels the request is appropriate, a motion approving ordinance 2019-146, which is attached to your packet, is recommended, subject to the conditions that are outlined therein. And representatives of the mall are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any comments or questions from the board? Okay.
Motion.
Sure.
Motion to approve. What was the number here? I'm sorry.
2019-146.
In accordance with the general compliance with the plan submitted and the 6 specific conditions for approval for the site.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Comments or questions? Dr. Oppenheimer.
Do we have the representatives
Yeah,
from the mall here?
it's Hal.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Hal Frank from the law firm of Melcher, Pertil, and Stell on behalf of Hawthorn LP, and we have, as Mr. Atkinson said, our entire team here to answer any questions you have. We also have Nick Lindsay, who's going to be the operator of the facility here, to answer any questions you might have about the operations.
Okay. So I heard a mention of small plates. Where's the kitchen?
Before I sit down, can I just say my concluding remarks? I want to thank Mr. Atkinson for helping expedite this process. As he said, they're trying to get this open in time for Black Friday, which is not far away.
Sure.
So you know, his staff's been very cooperative in helping us get to this point. I just wanted to say that publicly.
It's nice to hear.
Thank you.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Nick Lindsay. I'm the chef at the new Kiosk here in Vernon Hills. The kitchen is actually going to be, most of the prep area is actually going to be off-site in a storage part of the mall where we have 3 compartment sinks, hot water, hand sinks and things like that, and refrigeration. And then here, there's a worktop table that we can assemble the cold tapas. So there'll be a little facilities within the kiosk, and then most of the preparation is going to take site or off-site. Not off-site.
Where approximately, I'm just curious.
It's just down the hallway in the mall. So similar to what Caribou Coffee used to do, just as a staging area for preparation, kind of, yeah.
Okay. And is this meant to be the sort of long-term permanent?
Yeah, there's only
business
6 items, yeah, right now.
Okay, but I meant this isn't just a temporary restaurant just for the winter
pop-up?
season or
Like
a pop-up kind of
No,
thing?
it would be a permanent.
Okay. Is this something that other malls have done? Where, are you familiar with that? This sort of
I'm not
kind of-
familiar with that. I do know that some malls have done sip and shop, but I don't know if they've done it in conjunction with like tapas appetizers or anything like that, but I'm not sure.
I'm just curious if there's any market research to see if this is something that the community is excited about.
The mall has done some research. I'm not sure exactly what research has been done, but I just know I signed on to this project, and I don't know what that research would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I just have some concerns about it, and as any, I'm sure you guys would have some concerns too. Anyone opening a business would.
Sure.
Would. I just hope that this is the best use of that center court space for the mall when they're looking to put something in. I don't know if people are going to be interested in that or not, but hopefully they will. I'm certainly supportive of anything that will keep the mall as viable and do as well as possible. So
Right.
from that standpoint.
Well, I think it's going to offer a service similar to what Caribou Coffee used to do, where it's going to be coffee, lattes, things of that nature, and then as well as pastries. There's going to be some kids' items there as well, non-alcoholic drinks. So a lot of the same services will be, like Caribou Coffee that was there originally.
But that's clearly different than beer and wine.
Correct.
And
Yeah, that would be added to the service.
right. I'm just saying that I don't know if the shoppers, as they're walking through the middle of the mall, would be as interested in that, but they might.
I would think they would. I got a family of 4, so, sometimes, my wife and daughter would like to go to a shop, and I not necessarily don't have anything to do, or I don't want to go into that shop. I may sit down and have.
I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, the question is, do you want to sit in the center of the mall drinking a beer versus being stuck elsewhere? I understand that completely.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We got a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Cook,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka,
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to, I'm not just, I can adjourn this.
No, no.
Got a recess?
No,
No.
not yet.
Just,
We have communication and Even though it's not on the agenda per se, we always have a period of time for comments and communication.
Oh, yeah, you mean new business communication, okay.
Yes.
That was new.
Okay.
I have.
Trustee Schultz has got some new business.
A couple of things. Number one, District 128, their Special Olympians, their Special Rec floor hockey team took first place. That's a combination of both the Libertyville and Vernon Hills students, mainstream students, and they took first place in the floor hockey tournament for the state, so they are the state champions in that, quite similar to the basketball team that we honored a month or so back.
Well, let's bring him in then. We should bring him in.
Yes. And then secondly, it just came across the internet today, the Vernon Hills High School media team took second place in the 3rd annual Silent Film Festival. I forgot to write down the name of the film that they produced, and The Duelist. And it was written and directed by 2 students, James Altschul and Sebastian Dominic. You ever have either one of them, Tom? I know I'm screwing up their names, but anyway, that group from Vernon Hills High School took second place in, again, the 3rd annual Silent Film Festival here in Illinois. So congratulations to them. And of course, one more time into the breach, I go with my, seems almost a permanent rant. I would suggest anybody who has the Tribune and/or go online. There's a young lady, Tal Abbabady, Abbady. She teaches English in Broward County, Florida, and I've got some excerpts from an opinion piece that was printed yesterday in the Chicago Tribune about how I recently took part in my first active killer school drill. And there's a lot of interesting things, but I was going to read this, but I think it's just more important to point out that 55 million students are currently enrolled in either elementary or secondary schools. And therefore, 55 million of our young people, and that number is exponentially larger, those that have graduated in the last 15 to 20 years, have gone through active shooter drills. It's just something that, again, boggles my mind, being of my age, and that's not something that was on my radar screen when I was a young person. And there's 230,000 individuals, Americans, who have experienced being present during an actual live shooter occurrence over the last 20 plus years. I think when I talked about this a few months ago, the number was 150,000 was the number that was being bandied about, or 180,000. It's actually, according to the Washington Post now, based on their collection of data, 230,000 individuals, young members of our society, somewhere between, I guess, the age of, we'll say 10 and 30, who have gone through something like that. Again, I bring this up because we had another school shooting this past week, and again, nothing has been accomplished. And in fact, I guess the Fix the Foyd got killed, Senate Bill 1966, as most of these bills wind up getting killed because we don't stand up for what is right, or at least from this chair's opinion, what is right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business? Did we vote?
No, I think you can adjourn this meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we already voted, though.
No, I didn't.
No, I don't think.
No, on the liquor.
We're going to have a Liquor Commission hearing
No, I know,
immediately after
but
this.
Are we going to take action on the ordinance we just?
We already
You
did.
approved
Yeah,
the
okay.
special use permit, now we're going to
Yeah,
discuss the
We
liquor
had to do
license.
that first so that the Liquor Commission could issue the license.
okay. All right.
Motion to recess.
No.
No, you can.
You can adjourn.
You can adjourn
Excuse
this
me.
meeting, call to order the liquor and license
Yeah,
commission
all right.
hearing.
And at
then-
what point do you want mention of we closed session?
And there will be a closed session to discuss personnel pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
And you can call for that motion at the end of the committee of the whole.
Committee? Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, so is there a motion to adjourn and then obviously go into the Liquor and License Commission hearing?
So
Motion.
made, I thought.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Roll call.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim. Aye. Trustee Cook,
Aye?
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka,
Aye.
President Byrne.
Aye. Aye, okay. Motion carries. I'd like to call the Liquor and License Commission hearing to order. Roll call.
Liquor Commissioner Byrne,
Here.
Deputy Commissioner Cook,
Here?
Deputy Commissioner Markwart,
Here.
We have a full committee or commission. All right, first item is approval of the November 5th, 2019 Liquor and Licensing Commission minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Motion is second. Roll call.
Deputy Commissioner Cook,
Aye?
Deputy Commissioner Markwart,
Aye.
Liquor Commissioner Byrne,
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Item 2, Food for Soul, Inc., DBA 6021 Cafe and Wine Bar, 122 Hawthorn Center, Suite 9012, requests a Class E liquor license. Chief, you got any thoughts on this one?
No, I think, Mike, anything to add on?
No, I mean, if you didn't recognize the owner, he is also the owner of Calzone and Macaroni in Hawthorn Village Commons.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
All right. Those are motion to approve.
So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call, please.
Deputy Commissioner Cook,
Aye?
Deputy Commissioner Markwart,
Aye.
Liquor Commissioner Byrne.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Is there any other business to come before this Liquor and License Commission? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Second.
Roll call.
Deputy Commissioner Cook,
Aye?
Deputy Commissioner Markwart,
Aye.
Liquor Commissioner Byrne.
Aye. Okay, Liquor and License Commission hearing is ended. All right, I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. If I can find it. All right. Okay, what's the, we got minutes to approve from, what? The
November 5th.
November 5th. Is there a motion to that
So
extent?
made.
Second.
Any comments or questions? If none, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Aye.
Trustee Cook,
Aye?
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Motion carries, okay, food for, no, I'm not going there. Gregg's Landing, and Gregg's Parkway and Huntington intersection study.
Thank you very
Anybody
much.
here for that?
Yeah, Dave is.
Oh, Dave. Yeah.
Dave Starr.
I am here. Thank you very much. As you recall, this was a discussion at a previous board meeting. The direction from the board was to move forward with civil tech engineering study. We have the study. It's attached to your board packet, quite lengthy. I also have shared this with Gregg's Landing Homeowners Association, Kevin Borgard. He was not able to attend the meeting to give his input on it, but we did share it. We've also met with LDOT to go through the study. Essentially, what the findings of the study are, what did we look at? We looked at a number of alternatives, maintaining the existing conditions, signal modifications, adding beacons, temporary right turn removal, permanent right turn removal, relocating the crosswalk, all-way stop control, traffic signal installation, compact urban roundabout. Really, the highlights of the study is the traffic volumes do not vary substantially from the prior counts. Interesting enough, 2014 was the highest traffic volumes counted. 2017 dropped substantially lower than that, and 2019 is right in between. So that's our finding in terms of traffic counts. They haven't substantially varied over the average over the last 5 years. Always stop control, when we looked at that, the warrants are not, it is not warranted. The traffic signal installation is warranted. In discussions previously with the HOA, it really hasn't been supported, whether it was here or whether it was Lakeview. It also may not address the critical issue we're trying to make it safer. Accident history of both pedestrians and vehicular accidents reflect the difficulties of drivers viewing westbound vehicles when a vehicle is present in the right turn lane. Just trying to be more short and concise on this. When we looked through the study, some of the really important facts that we found out was there's the fact in terms of a bicycle accident, a child being injured more recently. Those are the pedestrian crossing issues. But we have, since 2011, historical information in terms of car-on-car crashes. And what we're really finding is the same thing is happening with cars as with people crossing. People who are turning off of Huntington and they want to turn east, a left turn to go on Gregg's Parkway, they are struggling to see the other car when someone is in the right turn lane. So someone is in the right turn lane, they see someone, they're stopping to allow someone through, or it's a big panel van and they don't see the other car and the westbound driver clears right through the intersection. They're not pausing because they don't see the other car, and there's accidents. A number of accidents reflect that. We've looked at not just the number of accidents, and there's been an average of less than three a year, but as we read through each and every one of the reports that was shared from the police department, when you read the detail of it, it is telling us they're not seeing each other. So we did meet with LDOT. We talked about different things. There are concerns certainly in terms of they are concerned about moving traffic through the subdivision. That was their charge when the agreement was signed between Zale, the village, and the county. But that was signed 20 years ago, and things are changing. The need for the study was more as a planning tool to make sure we were successful. They have a new director at LDOT, and I think he asked a pertinent question is, why is the county involved in this? And I think there's a better understanding now, where should we head? And although there's a concern on how people may queue and it may back up some of the traffic through the intersection, we all agree safety trumps the traffic volume or queuing issues. So that's our driving charge. What we would like to do, and what they have agreed to, is a temporary right turn lane removal. So what we would like to do is, for approximately a 6-month period, instead of going to remove the right turn lane immediately, We'd like to put out some delineators, whether they are plastic tubes that are into the ground or whether they are plastic jersey walls. We would like to block off that right turn lane, and we'd like to study it. And with those stats, we'd like to go back to LDOT and show them proving that it is safer in this condition, and in terms of the queuing, it's very minor. So they've agreed to this. They've sent me an email verifying that, and the recommendation for the to the board is we'd like to move forward and put up a temporary elimination of the right turn lane. We'd like to study it. This would mean we'd have to do a before and after queue analysis to figure out how far are they backing up. So in terms of cost, the original Civil Tech study was $19,500. We have some money still left over from that. The new study for the queuing before and after is about a $9,000 study. Probably half of it we already have from the approved contract where it is, so it'd be probably an additive $5,500 to do this. Why does it cost the money it does? They set up cameras, they figure out where the queuing, and then they have to post-process it by sitting and counting the cars over a long period of time, put a report together. But it is something that's really important to do to verify our case with LDOT that this is the way to go, and we'd like to know the right way to go before we make a permanent change. So my professional recommendation is to move forward with this, with the board's certainly direction and approval to do so, and move forward with a temporary elimination of the right turn lane. And I would bring back a ordinance to approve Civil Tech study for the additional dollar amount.
Okay, Trustee Cook.
Interesting you should bring up what you did about that, because shortly after we had our initial discussion of this, that's exactly what I saw happen. I was westbound and a car about 4 or 5 cars in front of me. As somebody was making a right turn, somebody turning east assumed that it was clear to do so because of that car making the right turn. And there was no accident, but it was a pretty near miss. And so even when you figure in the amount of accidents you talked about, there've got to be way more than that where there are near misses. And I don't know why people assume that because that car's turning right that you can go across multiple lanes, but they apparently do. So I think I think we're headed in the right direction with this.
Okay, Trustee Schultz.
What's the cost of your mini roundabout?
So the cost, excuse me, the cost of the mini roundabout.
Urban
roundabout? That's a new term.
It's estimated at $625,000.
So that's slightly more than, no, that's quite a bit more than the stoplights.
Yes, sir.
Stoplights are $250,000.
450,000, but yeah. 425,000 by the consultant's report. At 450.
Yeah, I kind of like the stoplight there myself, but yeah, no, I'd like to see us go forward and learn more.
So what would be the most effective, the delineators or the jersey wall?
Depends if you're talking to my staff that does the snow plowing. I think they would prefer the jersey barriers. I need to balance that with the visibility, and the plastic delineators are less obtrusive and more visible for pedestrians and drivers to see one another. Yeah, so I would prefer the delineators, but we're going to be replacing them because it is winter. So that's the only reason I'm considering the jersey.
On my way here, I just noticed that it happened, I guess today or last night. The 3 posts with reflectors on 45 at Sullivan there.
Okay.
They got whacked. So, and they're only about 3 weeks old.
No, the ones.
All right, so so, okay.
I'm sorry.
Which one do you prefer? I mean,
Um,
which one do you think we're gonna put up now to close the lane?
The delineators, the plastic tube delineators spaced 20 feet apart.
Okay.
20 feet close enough?
Yeah, back to Rappahannock.
Thanks, Dave, for all of your continued efforts on this.
Thank you.
I'm curious, you mentioned you'd given the information to Kevin Borgard of the HOA. Did you get a chance to discuss this with him and get his opinion?
We went over a lot of the details before he actually read the report, and I also gave him the thumbnail sketch as far as how the meeting with LDOT went. My prior conversations with him, and I just want everyone to know, we work very close with the homeowners association. Kevin specifically, we've been out to this intersection and met. We've looked at the trees, what trees need to be removed. We also have went up and down the corridor on removing additional trees. So he has not said this is the one he would like over the others, but in our conversations, he understood that this was a very viable solution. We just haven't had a chance to connect on specifics.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to me it's either this solution or a stop light. I don't think the roundabout's going to be a viable solution. There's a lot of studies showing that it's actually less safe for pedestrians in many respects, and then as the study showed, it might actually increase traffic, making things too easy for people coming from outside. And I drive this path pretty regularly going up to my Gurnee office, so I'm very familiar with it. And I think blocking off that extra turn lane, although it's going to add a few seconds to my drive back, it's probably the safest, short of having a stop light.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fully in favor of this.
Thank you.
Trustee Cook.
Yeah, just a quick question, Dave, about the term compact urban roundabout. Is that significantly smaller than, say, a roundabout like the one at Everett and Riverwoods, or I mean, is it smaller?
It would be substantially smaller, and I live in Gurnee by Bittersweet Woods, so we're talking about Almond and Dada, and they've added one recently in Gurnee.
Well, they have one at Wadsworth and Hunt Club too.
Right. So the ones that you're looking at are more at on larger intersections. They're much bigger. They're more functional. The one that I'm talking about in Gurnee is having some concerns with that. They've actually added additional flashing LEDs telling people they're going too fast, etc. I've seen police on the side of the road waiting for trucks to haul the vehicles away.
So the compact one is kind of maybe a little too small?
It's too small. I think when people are entering into it, there's not enough reaction time, and it causes some concerns and accidents.
Close them down.
All right,
Hit the
thank you.
curbs, though.
Yeah. I would certainly.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a motion?
So made, or
To what?
I make the motion to approve the temporary elimination of that right turn lane using the methodology that Dave and staff think is most effective,
Second.
least cost.
Yeah,
Okay.
second.
Second, Cook or
I don't care.
Markwart?
Make a difference.
No, you know, the only question I was going to ask Dave is on the roundabouts, how safe is that for pedestrian crossing? Because now you don't have cars stopping at all, and they're constantly going in a circle.
That's a concern.
I concur with the point that I heard in terms of safety of roundabouts. I think at this intersection, people are already trying to make too many decisions, and then once they figured out the roundabout, and then now we have someone crossing, that's concerning to me.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. For any further comments or questions? If not, roll call.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Aye.
Trustee Markwart.
Aye.
Trustee Schultz.
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Cook.
Aye.
President Byrne.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Park District's request to waive the first payment on, the old YMCA.
Right, thank you. Excuse me.
Delegate the money to help them move the skate park.
Right, since the plans for the District 73 kindergarten building were received final approval and construction began, the Park District has consistently stated that it's necessary to relocate the current skate park from its current location due to traffic and pedestrian concerns to a different area off what is now the paved the paved parking lot. Recently, staff attended a liaison meeting with members of the Vernon Hills Park District Board and members of District 73, along with Trustee Markwart and Trustee Cook. One of the agenda items was a request from the Park District to the village to help them fund the relocation and construction of the new skate park. The total cost for the relocation and construction of the skate park is approximately $280,000. The request was to have the cost shared by the Park District, District 73, and the village. The specific request of the village was for a contribution of between $70,000 and $80,000. During the ensuing discussion, one of the suggestions mentioned at the meeting was to have the village waive the first payment for the Lakeview Fitness Center, which is approximately $80,000, that could be used to fund the village's contribution for the skate park. Under the terms of the 2012 intergovernmental agreement, the Park District is to begin making 10 annual payments to the village in the amount of $84,000 beginning at the end of this year. The Park District has followed up with me at least on 2 separate occasions, wanting to know if the board had considered this matter. I told them that I would bring it before the committee of the whole for your discussion. So that's the ask.
What was the total that we loaned them?
$2.2 million.
And how much has any of that been paid back?
We received all of the impact fees from the Oaks, which I believe was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.2 million.
Okay.
So the debt owing right now is $840,000.
Yeah, I knew though we lent them a lot more than that.
Right, it was 2.25 million.
Okay, Trustee Cook.
Yeah, in the discussion about this, the moving this, not only is it being moved, it's being updated to a more contemporary skateboard park. It's a group that doesn't get a lot of, there aren't a lot of other things in town for the group that does this kind of thing. And in addition to making it a better skate park, it's also going to make it actually safer because it's moving it off the parking lot, and there will be a small berm between it and the main part of the parking lot. So it's both a better park and a safer park, and at the same time accomplishes what the district and the school district and park district want to do in terms of traffic flow. So I think I'll go ahead and make a motion to waive the 2019 annual loan payment.
Of 84,000.
Yes, of 84,000.
Okay. There's a motion, is there a second?
I'd like to
I'd
comment.
like to comment.
Yeah, I
Well,
know,
but you
I'm
can second and then still comment, so.
Okay.
not gonna turn, I'm gonna cut anybody off.
Because actually, that's the way discussion is supposed to be, is
Okay.
after the motion and second.
Okay,
Might as well second.
so is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a second. Okay, under further comments or questions, Trustee Markwart.
Yes, Tom and I were there, and question I had asked was the benefit for this, do you make any money? They don't make any money on it. The other question I brought up was, did we not give, is it 200,000 to the school for the?
That we haven't yet, but yes, we are committed to that.
Was for Phillips Road. which is not going to happen, but the school's still going to receive the $200,000. Tom had brought up, I thought, a pretty good idea of trying to find out with our businesses in town, would they care to donate money? Another feature was if there was signage of something that would help somebody the business in town to donate. So really, when you take a look at this, it was one of the things, well, if you're not making any money and you want to move it and you want to upgrade it, why are we paying money for it? Well, what I come down to is it's the kids. You're taking with activities for kids, from sports to music to the math, all these things that go on. This is another situation for a child to be off technically the streets and being able to do something. So I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, okay. Trustee Takioka.
Well,
I fully agree. I think this is a great idea. I think we should definitely do it and support it. However, I would like to see the Park District, for example, participate in like a fall fest in the future. And I think as part of, this consideration, that I think we should have them agree to that. So I don't think is that too much to ask?
Is that a
Have
quid,
them
is that a quid pro quo?
That's not a quid pro quo. I mean,
No,
it's,
it's just
it's like,
I don't think it'll cost them $80,000 to
correct.
provide a
In
hayride.
consideration, I
they already
think,
have a wagon. So.
I mean, that was the feedback.
Yeah, you know what, that's a
Do me a
good
favor.
comment.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, because they didn't have the hay.
Senator,
Yeah,
there was
there
no
was no
They
quid
did
pro
have a
quo.
hayride,
Did they?
their own, but they didn't have.
I didn't have it
right.
at our
I mean,
event.
I don't, I think that, we could maybe add that to the.
I don't have a problem. If
consideration.
the first and
That-
second agree on that, that's okay with me,
Would anyone have an issue with that?
I
like to
don't
work
really want to
together.
tie it to it, but I think we can encourage them.
Encourage them to do
Okay.
it. Work. We
Okay.
all work very well together, and I'd like you to keep that.
Yeah, it's refreshing. With that said, the $200,000 though, how much of that is that going for the turnaround or drop-off portion of the kindergarten project?
Goes to the school.
Well, Mark,
Now, go ahead, Dave, you got this one.
And then we're still the buses are still going out on the atrium eventually.
we are still contributing the money for the transportation component of the kindergarten project. Yes.
Okay. And we're going out, and the buses
Yes.
will go out?
And buses will exit
Atrium.
through the
Right.
Victory Center out to Atrium.
Okay,
Through a fence. There'll be a fence,
A
a
gate.
gate, I'm sorry, a gate.
yeah,
Right.
okay, all right.
Only be opened a short window.
Only about 20 minutes in the morning.
All right.
I don't think it's going to even be open in the morning, but I'm not 100% sure, but it's certainly in the afternoon, short period.
Okay, now we need a roll call.
Yeah, you need a motion to direct staff to direct the amendment to the original agreement to allow us to do that. We'll bring that back on the committee of the whole.
Then-
Okay, yeah, that was
December
what my
5th.
motion was.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And it was seconded.
We'll bring it to you at the next village board meeting.
Right.
For official
all
action.
right. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Cook,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka. Aye. President Byrne.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, and we're going into closed session after we adjourn this for personnel?
And approval of minutes.
Okay. All right, is everybody clear on that one? All right,
So motion to adjourn and go to closed session.
Second.
okay, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Cook,
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Aye.
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, good night.